Hey everybody, Paul here with Cichlid Nirvana, back with what turns out now to be the fourth part of my series on cycling your aquarium. And this fourth part is kind of part two of my experiences cycling my first aquariums. So where we left off was I have a tank that has zero ammonia. I'm seeding it to 4 to 5 parts ammonia every day, and in 24 hours it's down to 0. It's got super off the charts levels of nitrites. I was not doing water changes, which I feel was a mistake, because the nitro bacteria was never going to be able to catch up with that much nitrite, I didn't think, or I don't think, because it was creating so much every day. It was just adding and adding and adding to it. So I think I extended the process longer than I needed to by not doing a water change. At this point, I could tell that there was some nitrobacter in the aquarium, in the filter or wherever in the aquarium, because I was having nitrates show up. And the one part with using live nitrifying bacteria out of a bottle that really made it hard to see what was going on is pouring that in, you instantly saw some nitrates. So you didn't know if they were in the bottle, or you didn't know if you would get some conversion from adding that in right away and then the conversion would stop. That just made it more confusing, harder to really control and know what was going on. So but I could see that they were increasing, that the nitrates were increasing. So it was going, and I was impatient, but I could see that it was happening, and I just kept adding my ammonia. In my 30-gallon aquarium, or 29-gallon aquarium, I'm sorry, it was taking forever. I never added any live nitrifying bacteria to that aquarium, and it seemed like it was taking a long time for the nitrosomonas to build up, to consume, to oxidize the ammonia into nitrite. So that I was just being patient on, because I wasn't as worried about it. So it was just taking a while. So this went on for quite some time, and eventually one day I went out, and you'll hear other people talk about this, fishless cycling. I went out and tested my aquarium, and there were 0 nitrites. I couldn't believe it. It went from off the charts to just, it was 0. Or what appeared to be off the charts, because it only goes up to 5 parts per million, the test. But it had nothing, and I didn't believe it, so I tested it again. But there was zero ammonia, 0 nitrites. So I seeded the aquarium with ammonia again, got it up to 4 or 5 parts per million, and checked it within 24 hours, and again 0. I thought, I'm ready to go. So then I was thinking, how do I get fish? Now I'm ready for fish. Woohoo. My nitrates were, as you can imagine, off the charts. I didn't do a single water change other than when I moved that aquarium up to my living room on the main floor of my house. And so I went online, and in a previous video I talked about my experiences ordering from Live Fish Direct. That's where I got my Mbuna. So you can check out that video, Introduction to My Fish, it's called. You can check that out to see, what my experiences were with that. But so I ordered my Mbuna. They were going to be next day. So I said, okay, let's do this big water change. And here's where I made a massive mistake. I thought, since the nitrates were off the charts, and everywhere I said, they said do a large water change. So I drained everything to, my sand was kind of leveled up to the back. It was higher in the back than the front. But I spread the sand out, and I tried to get every ounce of water that I could out of that aquarium. Now I left the filters, but there was still water in the filters, but I got every ounce that I could out of that aquarium. And what I found out later, based on what happened, is I'm sure that most of my bacteria colony was established in the substrate, not in the filters, or a lot of it was. So, and that could be too because of adding the Tetra Safe Start. Because I dumped that in, and by the time that could get sucked through the filters, it might have settled into the substrate, and that's where it was living. So what did I do? Without even thinking, filled the aquarium back up. I tried to treat it with prime before I filled it up, but that prime just went right on the sand. It didn't really spread out. So then I start dumping tap water that's got chlorine in it onto that substrate, and I'm sure it just wiped out all of my bacteria colonies in the substrate. And it slowly started building up. And as the levels got a little higher, you know, I added a touch more prime because at that point I was a little bit concerned about it. And then I let it build up. Or I'm sorry, I didn't. And this is another thing I did wrong as I'm remembering back. I added it so it hit the substrate, the prime, and then I was going to wait till the water got all the way filled up in the aquarium before I added more prime. So I filled the aquarium back up. It went all the way up to the top, so the full 75 gallons, just about, minus the little bit of substrate in there. So I filled it all the way back up, and then forgot to add prime and hit the button on the filters, the power switch. I have a power strip under my aquarium that the canisters are hooked up to. So it starts cycling then that chlorine water through my filters. And anyone who knows watching this that knows and has cycled aquariums before, you're cringing at me. And I tend to be pretty thoughtful and plan things ahead, and I just got excited and just had a brain fart. And so then right away I put prime in, and I thought, I didn't even think anything of it right away. And I seeded the aquarium with ammonia and thought, okay, here we go. It's seeded with ammonia. We're rolling. But I tested the next day, and in my other video you'll hear there was an issue with delivery, and the first fish arrived dead because the carrier left them outside in Minnesota in the cold all winter, or overnight when it was 15 below, and they didn't make it. So I had an extra day, but I tested, and I had ammonia and nitrite in the tank, and I just couldn't figure it out at first because, man, the last time that before I did that big water change that I tested, I added ammonia and tested, within 8 hours, 5 parts per million was converted. I thought it doesn't matter. I was adding a lot of fish, but I thought that bacteria colony is completely established. Well, I think I killed, if not all, a lot of my bacteria when I did that big water change. So, tip for you, learn from my mistake. 50% water change, 60% water change, 75 is fine, but make sure that there's enough water in there to dilute that, you know, dechlorinator if you're treating in your aquarium. If you're treating outside your aquarium, which would be even better, in a, you know, food-safe garbage can or something like that, and then pulling the water out of that to put in your aquarium, that would be even better. But be careful that you don't crush and stop your cycle by letting that chlorine kill your bacteria before it can get treated by your prime or whatever you're using. So I filled it back up, I tested, and then of course I was in a panic, so what did I do? I ordered TetraSafe Start again and put it in, and this time it did kind of behave the same way as it had before, and I thought, what else can I do? And so I'd heard of bioballs, biological or the bacteria in, you know, these little bioballs that dissolve and go into your aquarium. As this is all happening, my 29 is still cycling, and at this point it was consuming the ammonia pretty fast, and again, just like my 75, it was in the stage where the nitrites were off the chart, and they were just staying that way, and it seemed like forever, and I wasn't worried about it because I had these other fish coming. Although I had hoped now that I destroyed my cycle and I had my fish coming that it would solve it. Well, at this point, it seemed like the bacteria started to recover. I hadn't killed all of them. There was enough established where they started to build back up. And the fish arrived, and thankfully, because it took a couple days then before I got them reordered, thankfully I had 0 ammonia and 0 nitrite. So I thought, all is solved. All is well. And so I got my fish, and another mistake I made, even though I fishless cycled, even though I was trying to do it up to 5 parts per million, I ordered 36 fish, I believe, 37 fish, little, very small inch Mbuna. So, yeah, a lot of fish in that aquarium. And because I had killed the cycle, I didn't have nearly as much bacteria in my aquarium as I needed to up front. So, yeah. And now I'm gonna cut for a second, and I'm gonna come back at, you know, what happened when I put the fish in, and then how my 29-gallon aquarium ended up. So we're gonna conclude this video here, and we're gonna come back in the last video to kind of wrap up and explain what ends up happening with my fishless cycle. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and check me out in the last part of this series. Have a good one.